Hey, but let's start with this. We have been discussing Georgia several times during the last year or so about the issues they've had. And RaRa Thomas, the wide receiver, has been dismissed from the team for the accusations of what he was involved with. And so he is no longer with Georgia. We've discussed that he needs to dismiss somebody, not just because this guy gave him a reason. I don't know who else might be next, if anyone, but he's gone.
Yeah, and he should be, given that he's got felony charges pending. And if he's and this is the second incident that he's had after a pretrial diversion. So to me, given the severity of these charges, you need to Georgia move on from RaRa Thomas and just cut bait. He's not going to be the difference between an SEC title or not, and very few times are players that way. I do think he needs to, the next guy who gets in trouble for traffic after everything needs to be significantly suspended as well. Maybe not kicked off the team, but significantly suspended. But RaRa Thomas, had to go.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about cruelty to children accusations. Yeah. I think that's a bit of an extreme uptick versus, some of the other things like speeding in your vehicle. Now, there were other extreme versions of that, like speeding while drinking was going on, and we know what ultimately happened in one case that was very tragic surrounding Georgia, but this is its own story, and this is its own, issue, and he handled it, and they've gotten rid of RaRa Thomas, and I think they've made the right move given what he's accused of doing. You're innocent until proven guilty, but that doesn't give you the right to just be on the football team no matter what. I think that's what people get lost with sometimes. I think that's what we've seen other former regimes get lost with of, well, the court didn't say officially. It's like, yeah, but you're accused of something like, sometimes you've got to just go ahead and make that call rather than let the legal system play out. And I think given the attention on Kirby Smart's program, given that this isn't RaRa Thomas's first incident ever, then this was the right move to make. I think for Georgia football, and I don't know what happens with Thomas and whatnot after this, but I do think they made the right decision.
Kirby Smart today in a press conference saying, I met with RaRa on Tuesday, had a chance to talk to him face-to-face, which was important, but informed him he could no longer be a part of this team. So he's gone. And RaRa Thomas now moves on to whatever else is next, trying to get himself right. UTSA, Jeff Traylor, remember, dismissed a couple of players along with the school just a week or two ago. And now Martavius French, linebacker, has been suspended. Traylor had a statement on this, and you see it there on the screen about basically due to allegations, he has been suspended from all team activities. And so Jeff Traylor with a lot of new players on his roster, and two were dismissed because of aggravated, robbery, and now this one here with French. And so at least he's trying to clean this up early on. We'll see what the official thing happens with French as time goes on.
Well, he has taken some chances with a couple guys in the portal. I mean, Denver Harris is on the team. Also, he's had some problems at a couple places. But I think it's good that if you're going to take chances on guys, not to keep taking chances on guys and let them know that, yes, I'm taking a chance on you, but the minute you give me a reason to, that's over. So, yeah, you're gonna have to deal with that if you're taking those risks on players, and no one's above the team, and you have to protect the team above all else. And letting guys who are running afoul of the law or getting in trouble on the team to wait it out, to me, just not the juice, not worth the squeeze there.
Yeah, and I think also it depends on what are we talking about. It's a very vague statement. It has no details on what actually occurred. So, it could be something that's still relatively minor, and maybe it's just a pattern of behavior, or if it's something pretty major, and that's the obvious choice they had to make. But you bring in a lot of guys to the transfer portal. A lot of guys are in the transfer portal not because they just want playing time. A lot of guys are in the transfer portal because maybe they got booted off their previous team, or other situations like that. So, I think there's some chances being taken on some edgier guys, like you mentioned Denver Harris. I don't know to what degree he really is. I know he's
he might
he made
major
some
in being a
stupid decisions.
knucklehead.
He made some dumb decisions. And so, you take enough of those guys, and odds are you're probably going to have more dumb decisions at some point. So here's a guy who was on University of Tennessee's roster initially and was suspended 3 years ago for misdemeanor charges, simple drug possession, drug paraphernalia. So that's not, necessarily what's going on here, and that's not a you're banned from football offense, but had a little bit of a track record of getting in trouble. Obviously, he's gotten in trouble again, and clearly this is more serious to the point where Traylor's feeling like you need to kick the guy off the team. So I think that says it all. And, let's see if they can try and calm the waters a little bit when it comes to some of their roster issues, because that's 3 guys in the last few days that they've had to make this decision on.
Now, this is from Jed Drenning. We had him on yesterday, who covers West Virginia. But in that big, huge preview that I mentioned that he put together, there's a lot of nuggets in there. And I didn't think much about this. And this is not to, take a shot at any particular program that's been in a long drought. But here are the 16 teams in alphabetical order, slowly but surely, their last conference title. Arizona, 93. And then you see with Arizona State, Baylor, BYU, the last time was the same year with Arizona State, 2 different conferences. Cincinnati, just that year they went to the semifinals. Colorado, hard to imagine their last conference title was when they bludgeoned and put Nebraska to sleep in 2001 and then beat Texas in the championship game.
Yeah, it's not really that hard to imagine if you think
I thought
about.
they'd sneak in one,
do
somewhere.
you really have any lasting memories from Colorado football the last 20 years? Outside of Nebraska?
No, I try not to go back. I try not to go back past 2002.
Mine are some fun moments watching Steven Montez play quarterback or Laviska Shenault when he was playing at his absolute best, but those were individuals from Texas that I was just tracking basically. And football-wise, I think that you actually sit and think about it. You're like, we really haven't we talked more Colorado football in the last year than we probably talked in the previous 5 years.
And we would cut that 80% down if it wasn't Deion probably with what he's trying to do at Colorado.
Deion put them back on the map.
Yeah.
They were not totally irrelevant, but they were not on anybody's radar any longer for the most part, unless you were in the pack and you were playing them. And so it's been a while since they were actually really good, but they were really good in the early 2000s. They've had some good teams since then, but just obviously not conference champions. I believe they played with Steven Montez for a PAC title, if I'm remembering correctly, and I'll double check on that. But it's been a while since they've actually hoisted the trophy. Yeah,
well, and that game I'll never forgotten, and I still wake up in the middle of the night with it like there's a spider on my face. Houston, 2015. Is that the year they also beat Oklahoma?
It's the year they had Tom Herman.
Yeah, okay. Iowa State.
I think that was the year they beat Florida State in the bowl game, too.
Okay, all right. Well, they were really good. They had a good run. Iowa State started playing football in 1892. 20 years later, they won a conference title. And I'm not surprised that it's been forever. I just didn't know how far back forever went. But 1912 was their last conference championship.
Yeah, I don't think that's really surprising because I don't know that they played Oklahoma for it, and that's about as close as they've come. I'm sure between 1912 and now they've had other moments. I'm just not remembering from 1972 or something like that. But right. They've had that moment of getting close, but no cigar, and not close enough often enough to make you connect them with conference championships in your mind. So that's still longer than you would think, though. That's a really long time. But then again, they've been in a conference with, Nebraska and OU and all these
Colorado back in the day,
Texas, all these teams. Even we always highlight the big logos. TCU, Baylor. These other teams that have won, Kansas State that have won titles as well. So that's crazy. It's been that long, but if you think about it, it makes sense.
Their last 2 titles were 11 and 12, 1911, 1912. Their only conference titles. Their last division title was back in 2004.
Okay, so since 1912, we fought in 2 world wars, Korea and Vietnam. Women were not allowed to vote the last time that they won a conference title. Now we have one running for president. Let's see. I'm trying to think of what else. There was no radio, which means there was no television. Automobiles were very early on.
Probably better made then than ever before.
The old Model T was really the only one. There weren't paved roads.
That's something that I don't want to get off on a tangent.
Segregation, there's a whole lot of things that are different.
I still don't know how that millions of miles of highways and country roads, whatever, have been paved. And you see them repaving. You rarely see one that's new. Someone did that. And I always wondered, God, that must have taken forever without the technology that they have today.
It takes forever today.
Yeah, no, that's true. Shut down a road. All right, so there we are. Keep going down the list at Kansas. That's when they had Bobby Douglas, who went to play with Chicago Bears. He was a left-handed, pretty burly quarterback. Kansas State just a year or two ago. Oklahoma State, 11. TCU, 2014, when they split with Baylor. Texas Tech in 94. And then UCF when they had the unbeaten team. Utah just a couple of years ago, and West Virginia in 2011. So those are the last conference titles among the teams that are right now in the Big 12. Nothing to try to wow, Iowa State, just to give everybody a little bit of perspective.
Yeah, I mean, Iowa State's just the longest drought, so it's just interesting that theirs is so in a different period of time in the early 1900s versus most of these being, relatively 90s, 2000s-ish, with the exception of Kansas, although they have a good shot of breaking that this year, or at least a pretty good opportunity to do that, it appears. Texas Tech in 94, that's a long time ago. And, Texas Tech, a very proud brand. But if there is something and there is something to be said for a lack of, bigger results when you compare them to some of the other schools in the state. And that's something that Joey McGuire and company are desperately trying to change, great investments. They seem to have a lot of good talent. And I think that's a team that's, I don't know if they're a sleeper for some people, but I think they're in that second group of maybe not a lot of people are talking about them, or maybe some people are, but they would be a surprise to jump, or they'd be a team that you could kind of circle that maybe could be one of those teams that jumps up that's not in the normal conversation this year, because it seems like they are kind of a little quieter heading into the season, but they feel very confident. You feel the confidence there. So I think that they're taking an opposite approach as far as the hype versus last year, and maybe that pays dividends for them. But it's been 94, that's a long time, man.
And really they weren't. This is a note. Texas Tech was represented as the Southwest Conference champion during the 94 season under Spike Dykes. They were 6-6, 4-3 in the Southwest Conference, finished in a 5-way tie for second place, but A&M was on probation, ineligible for the conference championship or postseason play per Southwest Conference rules. Tech was selected to represent the conference since they had not played in a bowl game since 1939, had never played in a game as a member in a bowl game as a Southwest Conference. That 5-way tie, and that's how they ended up being crowned as the conference champion. So I even questioned 94.
Yeah, I do too. After hearing that, I didn't know all the details to that. I don't have my Southwest Conference history sharp enough, obviously, because I took that for they're in the conference title game. But you add that perspective to it, and it's a little bit different.
I would say that more 2008 when they had that 3-way tie, but Oklahoma won the tiebreaker with the BCS. That would be much more valid than what happened in 94.
Well, in 94, do you remember why A&M was on probation, Smokey?
Well,
I do. It was Greg Hill.
Oh,
you remember Greg Hill and a couple other players, but Greg Hill was the star running back, and he had been suspended for 5 games for this by the NCAA, and then A&M got this bowl probation, but they were the no-show jobs, or they would.
Yes.
Their job was. I remember my dad asking a legitimate question out loud into the void when he read about it, saying, "Okay, so if I hired him for a job, but I hired them to play video games and take naps." I mean, that's my prerogative, right?
Yeah.
So how does the NCAA determine these things? And he wasn't advocating for, let's do, Rhett Bomar had that deal at Oklahoma.
Big Red Motors
with the
or whatever.
Big Red Motors. It was that kind of a thing. But it was just one of the things you're just confused. So they had a job, and the guy didn't want him to do anything. All right. They still showed up, I guess.
Now,
but it was a weird thing now that nobody would care. But yes,
now
that was why.
You don't even show up. You just film a commercial and then get paid $30,000 or something. And that I should add some detail to that 3-way tie you mentioned. We got to remember too, that was the division years. That wasn't a 3-way tie for the Big 12. That was for the South. That was them, OU and Texas, and then OU gets the nod, and there was controversy there because Texas felt like they should have gotten the nod, and Texas Tech didn't have as much of an argument because they had gotten slaughtered in Norman, whereas they had beat Texas on the Michael Crabtree catch at the end of the game. Texas had beat Oklahoma, but not to the extent that Oklahoma had beaten Texas Tech. So yeah, that was still the division years where you had that three-way tie, not just in the conference but in the division. But yeah. Tech, a program who's had some really nice teams, but has for whatever reason, because of the teams that are with them, or just I guess it not breaking the right way, it's been a longer drought than I think most people would probably imagine, and that's part of the drive that you have to go out and do that and change history and be one of those teams that can raise more banners.
And if you do, then raise hell and have fun.
Right.
Texas Tech beat Texas on that last-second catch to Crabtree, and they broke the tackle 39-33. OU lost to Texas 45-35, and then smoked Texas Tech in the game 65-21. All right, here is the Paul Hornung watch list. And, of course, there's like 50 names, 48 or 50 names. These are the players within the Big 12. We've been doing this throughout the week. The asterisk next to Travis Hunter is he's the defending award winner. He won it last year. You have Dylan Edwards. These are not running backs or wide receivers. These are some that do that, but also involve, for example, Richard Reese because of what he did as a kick returner last year, too. Everhart, Fox. There's Hunter, Kingston, McCray at Tech, Noel at Iowa State. Presley, I like him, man. He's a tough kid, gritty. At Oklahoma State, Reed Scadaboo. We had him discussed him yesterday with Chris Karpman and Xavier Townsend from UCF as the most versatile players in college football. And again, it's just a watch list. There can be some added, some that are dropped. Now, Craig, are you going to do anything about this new streaming service that's combined?
I don't think so, no.
You're not? Okay, Garrett, because I want you guys to help me with this because you know how I am about that. So how do you say the name? Venu Sports. I saw this from Andrew Marchand and even John Orland last night that this was going to be announced. It's a new streaming. We knew about the service. Fox, ESPN, and also Warner Brothers, Disney, correct?
Mm-hmm.
$42.99.
Warner Brothers Discovery.
$42.99 a month. So those who sign up at launch this fall will be guaranteed that price for at least the first 12 months.
So this is a hub for all. This is not going to be – so you get all these things if you have Hulu or YouTube TV or whatever, depending on the tiers and packages you pay for. But if you're someone – for example, Jack was asking – we were talking about it earlier. And Jack's someone who doesn't care about cable or any of those channels. He's just going to watch sports and then a couple things here and there. So – he'll, subscribe to Netflix and maybe one other thing and then this, and he would watch it so he can go watch all of his live sports in one spot. So that's what Venu is going to be. Should they beat all of the antitrust lawsuits that they're going to be thrown at, because this is in no way not a monopoly. Like, it's kind of a monopoly when you put all these together to push out anybody else in the space, but which they'll probably get through because these are giant corporations. So that's what it is. So $43 a month, and you're gonna have a hub for all of the streaming that ESPN, Fox, Warner Brothers Discovery, which is essentially Turner Sports, has to offer.
Now that they don't have the NBA in a year. Craig, YouTube TV, I bought that last year for the one reason to watch Alabama, Texas. That was the way I could watch that game. And I've kept it because it's really good and it's easy to navigate, although I'm very rarely looking at much anything other than like 4 channels. I have cable, but I've cut that back. What's the best decision? To do this, YouTube TV, which has a lot, at $79.01 per month, or what cable can be anywhere up to $200 or $300?
I mean, hell, if I know, I'm trying to figure out myself at this point because, I like having ESPN Plus, but part of the appeal is having Hulu wrapped into it on that combination, or not so much Disney Plus anymore. I just don't watch enough from that to justify that. But if it's like, an extra $3 or $4, then yeah, I'll loop that in there so I can see, I don't know, some MCU movie that comes out at some point in time that I'm not going to go to the theaters and watch, right? But I don't have Hulu as a part of that package, so I still need that because there are shows that I watch on there. Netflix, I'm balancing that out right now. Like, if it wasn't for a lot of their World War II documentaries, I'd have no use for it, because that's like basically background music for me sometimes when I'm working on stuff, is like having stuff like that in the background. I could go on and on with various other ones like Max and all of that. Like, I need Max right now because, hey, House of the Dragon's on for another week, and I wanted to watch that. And I don't know, there might be some other things I watch in there. So I'm as puzzled as anybody in trying to figure out how to best watch. And that's why the best option will never be our option, because the best option's a la carte. Actually pick what you want and only what you want, and they won't give that to us. Or they will, but it's going to cost you full price on every single one individually, so where you're paying like well over $100 for like 5 things, right? So yeah, I don't know. I've already got the ESPN, Hulu, Disney bundle, so like now, do I need to get this for some random games on Warner Brothers Discovery? I don't really want to give a messy, although, hey, if you want to put us on your station, that'd be great, but Warner Brothers Discovery is a S show, basically business-wise. Mm-hmm. So I don't really want to give them money when I don't know what I'm really getting in return at this point. So I don't know. If people have YouTube TV and that satisfies their needs, then great. But myself, I'm still trying to figure out what exactly the right combination is for what I want to do, particularly this fall.
So I think the other thing, but you mentioned Warner Brothers Discovery. David Zaslav, their president, I guarantee you, is not going to make it through this year because he's lost the NBA. And also when it comes to Max, when they named that app, they picked the lesser of the brands to name it.
Yeah, dude, it's HBO. Like, HBO's got some weight to it, but no, let's call it Max.
Max, which is short for Cinemax, what do you think of, Smokey, when you think of Cinemax?
Movies?
I mean, what kind of movies?
Adult movies?
Yes. So, but when you think of
that's back when you.
But when you think of HBO, you think of The Sopranos and The Wire and all that stuff. So, I guess maybe David Zaslav was like, "Hey, you know what? We'll get more people." That are like, "Hey, is there going to be some softcore action going on here on this streaming service?" And then but that's So losing the NBA though, that's made that in total chaos.
Yeah,
boy. And
so I don't know. I like it's gotten so confusing. It was easier to just have cable and just pay that bill and know what you got and what came with that versus trying to have 7 different apps with all these different combinations. And I'm not trying to sound like an old head here, although I'm sure I probably do, but it's very confusing. Like I just said, there's a different bundle that has some of what I want, but not all of what I want. This isn't exactly everything that I want because it's still missing some other things that I want. So it's like, what do you do? I don't know. I guess it's just up to the individual, obviously, to figure that out for themselves. But I'm sitting here thinking right now, am I going to go and need that or want that? And I don't think so for $42.
I think most of that is on YouTube TV.
I already have it, yeah.
But YouTube TV has other channels, so it's going to be more. It's almost twice as much. I love YouTube TV.
But if you're not going to watch a show on, say, FX or something whatever it is, if you're not going to do that, then if you just watch live sports, then $43 is not
not
bad
at all.
It's not really a bad go.
And that's who they're gearing toward. They're not gearing towards me with some various shows that I do like to watch. And I watch very little TV, but there are some things I do like to watch. And so, this is more for somebody who just doesn't care at all about House of the Dragon or the Bear or whatever, and they just want to watch pure sports. Then this is right up your alley for $43 a month. I could see where this would be a good deal. But the streaming games themselves, I think, have become very confusing and very messy, and everything's got a combination with other things. But like I said, they just won't give us the one thing that we want, basically, which is just let us pick what we want and pay for it accordingly. No, you have to have this with this or, some combination thereov, but maybe we'll get there one day.
So, okay, that's out there. We're going to get later on. Craig's going to have Off the Radar, and we might get into the DirecTV lawsuit that's out there. That's another story, but a lot more to get to. Sam Kahn's about to join us here around the corner. Not sure if you saw this note. Do you have the Max Olson image, Garrett? Our good friend who was at theathletic.com for a long time, as long as when they started. He's on our show. He's going to come back on. He had to take a couple of weeks off because this announcement. He is now a part of ESPN.com. They brought him on. They want him, as he has become like a degree in the transfer portal and the storylines and the analytical perspective. Max now with ESPN.com. He will come on with us here, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. Sam Kahn, who loves Max Olson, a lot of us do, will join us here in the next segment. So congratulations to a great friend of the show and a friend in Max Olson. This is 365 Sports.